And now we're a much more holistic agency, about 50 full-time employees, and we do it all. So we're I suppose the quick descriptor is a full-service digital marketing agency, but we've been teaching content marketing, have written a couple of books. We teach a lot of workshops. And so that goes all the way back to answer your question of, do we have to explain this a lot? And so that's why the answer is yes, and for quite a while.
Yeah, well, it sounds, I always like having people on that know what they're talking about. And so I always research who the people are, and I consume some of their content because, it's important that we bring on quality people that give quality advice. For example, we had someone on the show last week, and we asked them we said, you're a startup co-founder and you've got $10,000. It's you and another co-founder. You made this cool little app, and now you need to go market it. How would you spend that $10,000? She goes, oh, that budget's way too small. You'd spend like, five, maybe 10. I don't know. 5 is even really small to make one video and then the rest of it to push out. But you really couldn't do much with $10,000. And I was like, all right, well, we're not airing that piece of advice because that is horrible advice, because I have made apps and I have subsequently had to market my own apps. I flip open my iPhone, make 10 small videos, varying different types of content, run $100 at each video, see which one performs the best cost per install. There's inevitably one that's cheaper than all of them, and then broadcast that one to the market. And like that cost my time and some money to test which ones work. And then I just use the rest of the $90, $100 to push the video that works. So.
Right. Well, and everybody has their perspective, right? I don't know who this person is or what organization they were with. And so they might be used to way, way, way bigger budgets and not really understand the concept of bootstrapping a business.
Yeah.
And if 10,000 is your budget, then 10,000 is your budget, and you got to make it work. So,
yeah.
But I would tend to agree. I would not have spent it all on a video without any further plan. So, yeah.
I think it's reasonable to say that regardless of what your background is, if you own and operate a company that's a marketing company, you got 40 people, you made it that far, suggesting to a co-founder to spend half of their $10,000 budget to make a video is bad advice.
Probably. That's true. Yeah.
You did a lot more with that. But we'll move on. So yeah, I liked your content. The one you went over different types of written content. You have one of those videos to talk about different types of video content?
No, I don't think I do. And I will tell you that also because video at the moment is still, being totally honest, as an agency, it's still probably the thing I wish we would improve on the most. And it's kind of interesting. What you just said is a little bit of an internal debate even happening here. Your comparison of the iPhone videos, quick iPhone videos, and a $5,000 or $10,000 production video, and we have everything from a client perspective, and we're pretty good at producing the iPhone small green room interview style projects. But the $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 video shoot out in another location for 2 full days is not necessarily what we do at all. Yet there's still this debate, of, well, we got to raise the bar. We got to get to that point. Our clients are asking for that. So, and that's kind of why I said what I said, how I responded to you about, everybody has a different perspective. But anyway, I don't think I have a video on that particular topic now. Not that I know of.
Yeah, well, we just took the science approach because, that allowed us to put rockets into space. And we took the approach of, let's just try a few things, see what works,
yep.
And then let's just do more of what works.
Yeah, we try to emphasize 2 things. One is fail fast. And the other thing is, don't wait for it to become perfect, because if you do, you'll never publish anything, which is another frustration with content marketing, is depending, it's one of the reasons we see people fail, or at least not succeeding to the level they had hoped they would, is it's in the execution, and part of execution is actually publishing the stuff, and not just waiting till you have something you think is the dream piece of content or a perfect piece of content, whether it's video or written or whatever it might be.
Yeah,
or audio, just like this one started.
Are you guys doing any audio marketing?
Not too much. We don't run our own podcast. I'm a guest on quite a few podcasts, so we tend to use that at the moment. But where we're probably one of our actual strongest marketing things is we still do, and the reason I say still is we've been doing it for now maybe 8 or 9 years in a row, but we do a monthly webinar. So that is recorded and then republished, and they can follow a PowerPoint with it, but it's primarily an audio, and it still does really well for us.
And what do you touch on in there?
Everything. We have about maybe half of the webinars we do throughout a year. So we do 12 in a year. Yeah, probably 6 of them will have guests, and then the other 6 would be put on by internal folks. It's all digital marketing related. So we'll cover everything from content to SEO to paid media, conversion rate optimization, and so on.
So you're the CEO, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so you grew this company from nothing to where it is today.
Mm-hmm.
So, we usually talk with CTOs. We're having you on specifically to bring value to some CTOs. We're going to ask you some questions later. But right now, I'm just really curious about you as a human. What was some of the struggles that you faced when growing your company?
All of them.
All of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and this actually is technically my 4th startup, 4th business. The first one, actually, I was pretty young and it failed in about a year, and I learned a lot of lessons there. This is the 3rd in a row that actually have worked. So yeah, we literally started. It sold a previous business. Wasn't sure what I was going to do next. Moved back home. Moved home office with my wife. I was doing internet marketing for some friends and some business associates, and had to set up an LLC. So I did. Called it Vertical Measures because we wanted to help people grow their business vertically and measure everything we do. And just started getting more and more and more business. So I've had the advantage of at least going through this a couple of times. Mm-hmm. But the difficult thing I think in our particular industry, and maybe you hear this from others that you talk to, and certainly CTOs, is that things are moving really fast.
Yeah.
The way we market 20 years ago compared to 10 years ago, compared to today, it's just every day there's something new to read and track from Google, Yahoo, Facebook, Twitter, the display market, and on and on. And I'm talking about daily. So it's a daily education process. There's no sitting and resting on your laurels.
So
that's probably the biggest challenge.
So what does it look like as far as, like, if I were to look at a pie chart of the content you distribute? Or you guys, you write articles, make videos, and then you run ads, and then you're going through some funnels to convert for your customers. Is that what you guys do?
Yeah, pretty much. In a perfect world, we would start off with creating a strategy for a client, and generally we'll have the customer journey, our client's customer journey as a focus of that strategy, and lay out a strategy based on that journey. And then we have several different areas that we really focus on from a digital marketing perspective. So many of the things you just said, but it generally always starts with content. Without content, you have nothing to advertise, you have nothing to optimize, and so on. So we do a content audit, we'll do a site audit, we'll do a lot of brainstorming, make recommendations, and then we'll really focus on, of course, getting the content there, and then figuring out the best way and the best odds of optimizing it to get it to show up on page 1 of Google, and then how to amplify or usually spend paid media to get the right content in front of the right audience. And and it's a long-term strategy. None of this is try it out for 90 days. This is minimum of a 1-year commitment, generally 2, if you're just getting started or you're not being successful at the moment. It usually takes that long. And we have all kinds of data to show we'll share our average client stats. So not individual success stories, but the stats for all of our clients bundled. And we can pretty much prove it's 6 months. It takes about 6 months before we start seeing a nice upward tick. 12 months later, the traffic's generally growing. And I'm talking now, of course, about organic. And then in 2 years, we can almost always more than double a client's traffic to their site and conversions. But you got to stick with the plan.
Yeah, well, that's the hardest thing to get a client to do.
Yeah, execution is everything. I'm asked a lot of times, what's the silver bullet or what's the shortcut? Surely you must know how to skip all this hard work, And I tell them, there is no shortcut. But if I had to say there's, one magic bullet, it is execution. Because again, we study everything. We've got about 50, 60 clients, and we can compare the ones where this is working against the ones where it's not. And it always boils down to prioritizing commitment and execution of the strategy.
Well, yeah, like the business. That's what business is like. It's real cool. Oh, you must be so awesome. You're the CEO of your own company, Arnie. Or they're like, Joel, you have a podcast. You have like 70,000 listeners. That must be so crazy. Look at all the cool people you have on the podcast. And I'm like, yeah, dude. I mean, I wake up at 6:30. We rock. We plan. We record. We do multiple shows a day. Like if you came and paired with me for a day, the first thing you would say is, oh my God, I didn't know you could work this much. I didn't know a person could work this much. The second thing you'd say is, wow, you have the most fantastic team, right? And then the third thing, they'd be like, this is not sexy.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
This is repetitive, consistent. Right. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
But it's fun. I love it. I love it.
I love it too, and I really love seeing the clients succeed, especially our what I would call our mid-market clients. We've got Fortune 500 clients where we work on a piece of Microsoft or Home Depot or whatever. We're not really having obviously we're having an impact on the business, but it's nothing that's going to change their stock price tomorrow.
Yeah.
But if we can work with a 500 employee or 1,000 employees or whatever less than that, and literally see it changing lives and allowing them to open more stores, add more employees, and that's the reason to get up every day. So.
Oh yeah, I got to work on a really cool project. I did a app for the largest law firm on earth, and and then they got hired to handle the Equifax lawsuit. So I was like, they were using my software for the first time on that lawsuit, and I was like, that's really cool. I mean, that was like a 7-month build, and it was crazy project, but it's really cool to sit back and hear that that's the first thing it's getting used on. So nice.
Yeah. So it's been a while since I've really been in the legal business. I did that years and years ago. Is the largest firm still based out of Chicago?
The largest firm by revenue, right? Because they all pick their. It's 3 billion, 2.9 or 3 billion. It's called Latham Watkins or Latham Watkin.
That's Washington D.C. maybe, right?
They're all over the globe.
But I mean their headquarters. They're usually they have
Their CTO is in California. I know that much.
Okay. They could be out of Anyway.
But they're pretty much everywhere.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they are. Anybody in the top 20s all around the world, I'm sure. Yeah.
So you guys, where are your clients sitting? Do you have a specific area where they tend to gather? In legal or some specific category?
Verticals. Well, we do a lot in the higher education space. Not necessarily intentional, but pretty much right out of the chute when we formed Vertical Measures 12 years ago. Actually, theoretically, we launched it as Vertical Measures 10 years ago in 2008. And education was one of the clients we had, then a pretty large company that had a lot of different schools around the country. And it's just kind of rolled from there. We've probably worked on 50, 60 different schools, most of them public universities, some smaller for-profit schools, but that'd be probably our largest vertical. It makes up, but even so, it makes up maybe today 30% of our business, and then the rest is pretty mixed.
All sorts of companies.
Yeah, and most what I keep calling mid-market anyway. A lot of companies, most people have never heard of, but some of them are doing hundreds of million in revenue a year.
So what's getting you excited these days, with your business, and what's happening? What type of projects? What's the thing that catches your eye or business that's really exciting for you?
Well, the passion and excitement for the agency at the moment is this is finally the year we're going to really do a lot with video. So
Uh,
we're just interviewing people right now. We're making an investment into all the technology we need so we can do a good job. Getting a producer on staff and all of that. So we're pretty serious about it. So I'm excited because I've been saying that this is the year of video for about 4 or 5 years now. But this year we're putting our money behind it. And also I would say as a general thing that I'm trying to get whatever our clients and our staff, I suppose, excited about. And even though we've been more or less doing this since our inception, just kind of changing our terminology a little bit. And our focus is with all of our clients, we want to help them grow their own audience, right? So much like you're building an audience, right?
yeah.
And I'm assuming somehow you probably own the audience as opposed to iTunes or however your podcasts are being distributed. But that's like our big emphasis. We've been really good at helping increase traffic and draw and increase leads for clients. But we haven't really turned the conversation to say, and by the way, along the way, we need to really have you own as much of this audience for yourselves as you can, which pretty much boils down to we need to capture at least a name and an email address. It could get thinned out as much as saying, well, we just need them to get to your site so we can pixel them, so cookie them so we can follow them around the web. But to really own it means basically what you've heard for decades, which is the money's in the list. So building your own list and just kind of changing that mindset. We've already seen really good engagement from our clients going, yeah, I want to own my audience, instead of us just saying, well, we're going to help increase traffic or leads.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess the more palatable way to say is you want a relationship with your customer.
Yeah,
Right.
or your prospect or your
Or your
prospective
prospect.
customer.
Yeah, yeah. You want to be friends
And
with them.
yeah,
Yeah.
you want to engage. You want them to engage with you.
I'm
Yes.
just softening it a little bit. That's what I do.
Yeah. 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 Well, and like I say, it's just really changing how we're referring to it. It's not changing what we've done all along. It's just, and people and our clients just seem to be able to picture it better. Oh yeah, I want to own that audience.
Yeah.
So
You mean to
yeah.
tell me that marketing and branding companies use new terminology to compete for business?
Well, they try.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have it
Yeah.
with our show. What we've done, and we don't, this is right now, this is a fun project for us. But what we've done is we went around and talked with everybody, asked what they want to hear about, the content they want to consume. We started making it. And then every time someone reaches out, we're very accessible and engage them. And we're always seeking to provide them value, answer their questions. I'm basically undercutting everyone who charges for advice by giving it for free and giving it out to people. And I have the credentials to do so, right? And then I bring the smart people on and we ask questions, do things like that. But what we found is recently this weekend, I was thinking, oh, okay, everyone's telling each other about the show, and that's how we're getting a lot of traffic, and that's how we got so many listens, and that was great. And then people, we do these clips, we clip really interesting parts, and we give them to people, and then they share them, and then we pick up on their audience because they're popular technologists or marketers or whoever, and we get a lot of traffic like that, a lot of new listeners like that. We don't have anything that we sell, just so you know. And what I noticed this weekend is I was looking through my analytics, which I hadn't been looking at all on my website. And I saw that everyone's coming in, or we're getting a lot of people come in from asking these questions, which like I'll just mention in one of my writings. And it's crazy. So now I have this whole list of like 40 things that I need to make content for that I can tell people are looking for, and they're coming to my site, but they really aren't getting super answers. It's just also mentioned in my content. So now I have some really intentional content to create that people are looking for.
Right. Well, so let me see if I understand. So you're saying you have content on your site that has that question embedded in it somewhere, and people are going to Google or some search engine and they're searching that question and they're winding up on that page? Is that, yeah, that's beautiful. Yes, then you're right. You're right. That'd be my recommendation, is create content probably with that as the title. The question as the title.
Well, see, everybody was linking to us because we were having big people on the show. So it gave our site a lot of weight for the
Yeah,
terms. And
authority,
then when and then I took my whole book and I just made each chapter an article on the site so that people, so I could, what I did was to make my book, you're going to like this, Arnie. I wrote all the chapters. I took each one, made it a blog post, ran social ads at people with the job role that would have something to say about it. And then they all got to comment and, went crazy, thousands of shares, comments, everything like that. And then I got to see what part of the content needed more attention or people were more interested in. Then I went back into final editing, patched up my book, and now I know I have a solid book before it's even released.
Right. No, that's beautiful. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we would call that, if we want to sound cool, we would call that ideation, but it's basically just good research.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good brainstorming and research. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So that's what we did. And then in those writings in the book, I asked questions and like, there's keywords that are matching for questions that it's just really interesting. I hadn't looked. And so when I went and looked, I was like, oh, this is really cool. Now I can go make this unique content. So,
yeah. Awesome. Yep.
So I'm going to ask you the question. Sure. Co-founder, bootstrapped. You've done it before multiple times. You have $10,000. You have an app. What are you going to do?
I got to remember how you answered it, not your guest. Yeah. Well,
you can make up the business, by the way, just so you know. You can change the business. It doesn't have to be an app.
It almost doesn't matter, I think. Product, service, app, whatever it is that you have that you think is the best thing on earth right now. And actually, when I talk to entrepreneurs, one of the things I will tell them is, lots of people have started companies and lots of them have failed, reasonably quickly. I think all the stats would support that. And I think the biggest reason that this happens is they really do forget about the marketing piece, the sales and marketing piece. They just think, well, this is a great product I invented or created or whatever, and why wouldn't they beat a path to my door and buy it? So of course I would be clever about, or hopefully clever and a bit frugal about that 10 grand, but I would always start by creating content. So I can't necessarily put numbers behind this, but I would create as much of it as I could for as inexpensively as I can, and make sure what you just talked about, the questions that are being asked in my industry, I'm answering on my website. I would take whatever, I would take 90% of that budget maybe and spend it on creating as much content as possible, as many different pieces of content as possible, not one video. And most likely that's going to wind up being a lot of written content with graphics, images and graphics and so on throughout the content to make it nice and readable. But just publish as much as I can to become an authority wrapped around that app or that product or whatever it is that you're trying to launch, so that people will find you hopefully naturally in search engines like you just described. And then maybe look for one of those pieces of content that seems to really be resonating and really getting some traffic, and maybe skim off, $1,000, 10% of that, 20 if maybe I can afford it, 20% of that, and run. Again, I have no idea what this product or whatever it is that we're describing, but probably spend that money on probably Facebook ads, because right now that's the lowest cost place and you can really target people there. And so if you've got a piece of content that's working and it's resonating, and now you want to amplify it a little bit on another channel other than your site, odds are I'd probably choose Facebook and target those people. And that's probably how I try to get this kicked off.
Love it. That's a great answer.
Thanks. I knew that was a big test, so I'm glad I passed.
No, it's really something that people can't fake. It's what we do is the reason why so many people listen to the podcast is not because it's a gotcha or anything like that. Is because when you're an expert, you love to share. And so I'm always prepared. Like I can go into any room ever and talk about any of the things I do. I'm fine. It's who I am. So when I find people on the show that can bring value, but like when you're an expert like you are, Arnie, people pay you. Like your company exists because you licensed your expertise and then scaled it, right? So when you have a platform like you have, and you have a business like you can afford to come on a show and talk to us, and then the people listening, they're instantly validating you as an expert. Like, all right, this guy's smart, and then that just increases your reputation.
Right. Well, and people have asked me, when I started Vertical Measures, how did it start and all that. I already told you I started it out of a, office in our home. But, and like you said at the beginning of our conversation about how, if someone followed you every day to see how much work actually goes into this, right? Well, in the beginning, and just for anybody who's listening, thinking about, well, if I only had 10 grand or whatever, well, I had more than 10 grand if I wanted to spend it. But how I launched Vertical Measures was every night I was writing blog posts for our blog. And in the beginning, nobody but in my case, my wife or maybe my mom was reading my blog post, right? I mean, it had zero traction, for the first month or two or whatever. But I would work all day long doing client work and trying to sell and close deals or whatever, but mostly the deliverables. And then at night, I would create content and not taking money out of my pocket. I would write my own content. And I'm sure if I saw some of what I wrote 12 years ago, it'd be embarrassing today. But that's how we got going. We knew what keywords we were going to target. We knew what questions we needed to answer. We knew the niches we wanted to go after, and that's what I focused writing content around until I could afford to hire someone else to help me write content. And we have never stopped.
Yeah.
I mean, we're an agency that has thousands of pages and hundreds of educational pieces of content on our website, and we still publish 3 every week, and we've been doing it for 10 years. We get a ton of site traffic and a ton of leads every month as an agency.
Speaking of 12-year-old content that you might be embarrassed about, our producer has dug up. No, I'm messing with you. I would never do that, man. I love you. I'm sorry.
It is probably still out there. Yeah.
Do you guys do white papers? Do you generate white paper content?
Something very, very similar. We do, and we actually created this thing called the hub and spoke model. And that's like when you asked me earlier, even the answer to the 10 grand or whatever, but companies that are really still struggling with this whole content marketing and all that, we recommend they follow this hub and spoke model. So the concept very quickly is you create a hub piece of content. So that could be a white paper, it could be an ebook, it could be a video training series, whatever it is, something of value that you can gate or ask someone for their name and their email address behind that. And then that's a hub. And typically we launch one as an agency, for ourselves, we launch one of those every 90 days. And then for the 3 months following that launch, a lot of the content we create is all focused on pushing people back to this hub. So whether it's blog posts, the webinar I mentioned earlier, our newsletter, any ads, whatever we're doing, we'll really try to push that hub out. And then meanwhile, we're creating the next one. And and again, we've been doing it for years, which is why we have multiple hubs that people discover online. So again, long answer, but we don't necessarily create white papers, probably more ebooks than anything else, and probably video training series. And those are what we create as a hub. For our clients, it's whatever's going to work best for them. Some of our clients do a great job with a whole white paper series, and some are better at video. So
you actually, this is what you do to market your own business?
Yeah, all of the time.
Can you give me an example of a hub? I'm just trying to wrap my head around it.
Might be I think the last one we did, and actually this is the cool part, is I've gone from having to write all of my own blog posts to I don't even know what we're publishing anymore. And that's the goal, right? So, I got there's 2 other people in charge of that today, and they're running with it. But I think the last one we did was something like the SEO strategy and tactics for 2018.
Nice.
So it's probably a 10, 15-page guide that would tell you the very latest that we knew at the time of publishing as far as what would influence rankings and getting found on Google.
And then you guys are just bringing people value. You create the spokes, drive it back at your free value, and then what's happening from there? Are they entering contact information to get this guide?
Yeah. I mean, eventually, the way this whole thing works, as you know, but yeah, you hopefully somebody raises their hand somehow. They fill out a form, or maybe we've got people that have. It's amazing. We'll go back and look at the data to see what kind of a profile becomes our client. And we see that, they'll hit 30, 40, 50 pages of our site. They'll download 3 or 4 things. We'll see these patterns, but yeah, that's the whole idea is they're hitting our site. They're starting to trust us. They think we know what we're talking about. They've actually learned from us, but they're in a situation where they just can't either, they don't have the manpower or, whatever the reason is, they can't do this themselves. So hopefully they raise their hand and say, we think you're an agency we want to learn more about and talk to and get a proposal from. And that's ultimately how you end up with a client.
Okay, so I'm like, this is Joel, me asking. Like, we can even clip this part of the call. If you don't want to, we can clip this part of the call. But I want to know. So they enter the information, they download this 10, 15-page guide, you're educating, you're constantly providing them free advice, just value. And then they reach out to you, which is like the best way to do it, right? Because then they're coming. It's always easier in business when someone comes to your door knowing that you're an expert, rather than you having to convince or sell someone on everything. So because they're just easier clients. That's how I run my app business. People just come to me through, I don't market it. People come to me through relationships. The relationships I have market it, and that's just how it goes. But are you having any success like reaching out to those people from, like, do you ever have like sales teams like reach out to those people that are entering their information on the guide, or do you just keep staying in front of them by emailing them more value?
Yeah, you don't have to clip this part. I'm happy to answer it.
Okay.
We do have 3 salespeople, and both of those things happen. We would consistently nurture those leads through email. But if we do happen to spot that, let's just say somebody was in one of the workshops that we taught, and then over the next 2 months, they've hit our site a bunch of times and downloaded a couple of things. We will do one of maybe 3 different things, but now the sales team will identify that potential client, and they'll maybe even cut. Just go back to our video conversation. We might even do a very, very personalized 30 or 60-second video to that person from that salesperson. We might send a custom email, or we might literally pick up the phone and just say, we noticed you were in our workshop. We noticed you downloaded this guy. Is there anything we can help you with? So we will do that kind of outreach as well. Yep.
Oh man, Jake. We got a real expert here. I'm pumped on you. No, I mean, I like it. That's you roll how I roll, man. Like, that's just what I do. I'll do 20 calls, due diligence calls, just helping people out, giving information, what I invest, what I not, and the code reviews. I just constantly do stuff, provide people value, and then the business happens.
Yeah. It's kind of weird too, because we do a lot of paid media for clients, pay-per-click, social ads, programmatic, and all that. And we do it for ourselves because we need to, and we practice what we preach. But that is by far the smallest piece of our marketing budget is paid. Everything, when 90% of our, whatever it is, I'm not sure it's 90, but the majority of our marketing budget is all going into content and optimizing it and having people find us. And it works a lot. We've gone from 0 to 50. So it seems
it's working.
To work. It works.
And are you located in Texas?
No, we're in Phoenix.
No, you're in Phoenix.
Yeah,
sorry.
Phoenix, Arizona. Yeah.
Oh, I actually have multiple friends out there. I have Dan Jaffe, who does Lawlytics, and they are a legal software company that's doing really well. They have probably about the same amount of people as you guys do. And then Pat Sullivan, who's like formerly did.
Pat, sure. I've known Pat for decades.
Oh, you know Pat?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, he's got the Slack competitor, which I'm drawing a blanks. So I'm sorry, Pat.
Well, yeah.
River.
I have another friend who has a Slack competitor here in town too that I will not mention publicly, but I'm sure he's competing with Pat. But yeah.
Oh, there's 2 Slack. Arizona.
Yeah.
I've been noticing a lot of stuff coming out of Arizona. Boston.
Arizona's kind of a quiet. Yeah, it's a little bit like an Austin. It's just a little smaller. It doesn't have that reputation. But there's a lot of smaller software companies here. Yeah. And actually quite a few digital agencies too. You probably heard of iCrossing and some of the others. They all started here in the Phoenix area, whether it was Scottsdale or Tempe or whatever. But yeah.
I got to know. Here's a tough one for you. All right. Are you a fan of Elon Musk?
I don't know him that well. I mean, obviously, anybody in business probably knows of him.
Yeah.
And I would say I'm a fan. Yeah, I've got some friends who aren't necessarily the biggest fans, but I give the guy a lot of credit for just swinging for the fences.
Who do you geek out over? Like, who's like really cool to you?
Well, is my profile picture going to be on this podcast somewhere? They
Let's
can figure out
yeah,
my age.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, you're going to date me right now, but the first person who came to my mind is Bill Gates.
Bill Gates. That's not
Yeah.
dude. Bill Gates is super cool, man.
Well, I've actually managed to, one of my previous businesses, I actually got to spend a little time with him. And so that was cool. And I so got to know him just a little bit. And this is 20 years ago. But I just think what he did, business-wise for the world is fantastic. And now what he's doing with what he's earned is also just really cool. And I will read his articles and
I love his letter.
Yeah, exactly. And so I still follow him. From a maybe more youthful thing, that's a good one. That's a really good one.
Bill Gates is
fun.
fine.
All right, I'll stick with that. All right, you're giving me credit for that.
And Bill Gates isn't old, man. Bill Gates isn't old at all.
Now I'm profiling you. Yes.
I'm 30, so I mean.
Okay, that's cool.
But I grew up with my dad, who's a programmer, and so I mean, I've been writing code since 8 years old. I've been just really into the technology. So man, Gates. I remember the day I got to see on a recording. I got Bill Gates and Steve Jobs on the same stage. I had like popcorn. I was like, ooh, they're gonna fight. They were very nice. Sadly, there was a little jabbing. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube, but it was if you read their stories and go back, have you read like Bill Gates' life story or anything like that?
I don't. Are you talking about even an autobiography, or I don't know. I don't recall reading a book on his life story, but I know his life story because of all the years. I mean, I've literally got to spend a full day with just him here in Phoenix.
Oh, nice.
And another company I worked for way back when, he came to visit a little software shop actually in Tucson. And, so I've followed him for years. So I do kind of know his story. And his dad, lawyer out of Seattle and all that stuff.
Oh, I know where it was. So. I was reading Malcolm Gladwell. Malcolm Gladwell, in one of his books about great people doing great things or something, he goes into it's basically the book is just a series of backstories of like different like life stories from athletes. Like he found that based on the time of year that they were born determined how well they were because of what size and age they were when they went into the pro sports and the different.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Then he did Bill Gates, and he's talking about like his parents. He happened to be at the one private school that decided to buy a computer, and he happened to get time leased on a mainframe over that summer. And then he happened to get this, and they did the Linux guy or some other embedded systems guy. And it was so interesting that like they were at this individual that was so successful was at the only school like in the state that had a computer. Yes. It's like, oh man, your environment is so like tied to your ability to be successful.
That's very true. Yeah.
All right. If you could go back, sorry, I got way off track. I've never asked a guest that question before. If you go way up, Elon Musk calls you up, or no, I'm sorry, Bill Gates calls you up.
All right.
He texts you. Hopefully you don't have an iPhone. That'd be super offensive. But
I don't actually.
So he texts you up and he says, "Come over, Arnie. I got to show you this." He's got a time machine, but there's something wrong with it. It can only go back 10 years ago to talk to your previous self. What advice would you give yourself?
No, that's great. We actually ask every employee that when they get here. And we publish it internally. Yeah, internally, but.
Hack that.
And most of them have a similar answer to this. But mine, I know because I wrote it. Wrote an internal article about this actually fairly recently. But mine is look more long term. I think if going back, 20 years, 30 years, I do think at times I feel like, oh, we got to get this done, and if we don't hurry up and get this done, not done, but I mean, if we don't capture this or make this move in the next 2 years. We'll be behind and blah blah blah. And then the years go by, and I realized, you know what, people still aren't here. And just having a much more long-term view of everything from investments to growing the business to changes in direction, whatever it might be. That's probably the one thing I would do differently.
Yeah, playing life in I play life in decades, and what
Yes.
made me get that perspective was having my daughter, and she's 5 months old now.
Yep.
But what happened was I started to realize right at coming up on 30 that I have memories of when my dad was 30, right? Because I was like 8, and so I'm like, oh my goodness, like I've got 20 years that's going to fly by me right now. So all I really need to do, and I've been working and writing code and been trying, like I work, man, like I work. Yeah. And I've been doing that for, 15, 16 years now, so hard. So all I really need to do is just keep pushing that work in the right direction. Those 20 years will fly by and I will be where I want to be.
Yep.
I'll still be a little unsatisfied.
What you just said is exactly what I was trying to say, is looking at life as decades as opposed to 2 or 3 year bites. Yep.
Yeah. So you're pumped for the next decade then?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Right. I couldn't say no to that. But
yeah,
yes,
right?
Of course I am. Yeah.
Yeah. Consumer behavior. You're right. Like we get all excited in technology and in business, but consumer behavior definitely does lag behind.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And actually, I would say, as I reflect on the last couple of businesses I've had, even this one, sometimes it's been a little bit more painful than it needed to be, because I don't know how. I wouldn't say like I'm a super smart visionary or whatever, but I tended to be ahead of the curve. Mm-hmm. And when you're ahead of the curve, you spend a lot of time educating, right? You have to educate your audience, your clients, and so on and so forth. And that's expensive and that's costly. And sometimes you just you don't make it in those circumstances. So that's, so anyway, so I think you got to, if you can figure out right the sweet spot, when to make a change or do whatever, and then stick with it, would be a lesson I have learned. Yeah.
Yeah. We actually had some interesting education stuff come up today about computer science. There's a big issue right now where, so like I hire like programmers all the time, right? For my businesses, or people will ask me to hire them or whatever. Well, they'll come out of school, 4 years of school, $100,000 in debt with a computer science degree, and you can't do anything with them.
Right.
Like they don't have, you have to go put them into an internship for 2 years so that they learn what actually happens. Then you can use them. Right. So it's real tough. So it started out small. Like I would get a message here and a message there from a computer science student that would come across the podcast. Arnie, every day, multiple times a day now. Every day. Yeah. What do I do? What do I do? I need help. Like we're not learning what we need to learn. Like we're doing all these Hello World projects. We're not actually learning stuff. And I've got every day, like my loans are they're in their first year and a half, right? And that's kind of when they're realizing it after a year and a half in of a 4-year program. And they're like, what do we do? What do we do? And so I'm kind of just, go get an internship now outside of your school hours, so that when you come out of school, you have a job. But then we were thinking, we actually came up with a couple cool ideas of how we could change what the teachers are doing. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go around and we're going to get some people that are running computer science departments at different reputable colleges, because I have a lot of local connections and at UCF and University of Texas and University of South Florida. So I'm going to go talk to some of the engineering professors there and kind of get their perspective, and then potentially put together a solution for how we could get these kids more experience without having to change the curriculum and just add some value to their classes. So when we do that, I'm gonna reach out to you and say, hey, like this is what we're trying to do. Could you help us with that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'm a believer in that. Yes.
Yeah, because we need to solve this problem. It's not fair that these kids, they don't know what they're doing. They're 18. They're told to go do this. They sign the dotted line. They don't understand debt at 18. They don't understand anything. And then they don't have the skills they need to make money. And it's like, it's one thing to hear about it in passing. it's another thing to see those kids' faces like ask you every day, what do you do?
Right. Well, it goes back to how we almost started this show off, where I was saying that my biggest frustration probably is every day is how fast everything's changing and how much you have to constantly stay in front of it. Oh, and that's the problem with any of our schools is that they're behind. I don't even know how to phrase this, but it takes so long for them to produce curriculum and get it approved and get it into the schools. By the time they do, in the technology side, it's too late.
It's too late.
Yeah, and there's just I've thought about solutions over the years, and of course I have to stay focused on the business I have, so I haven't ever acted on it. But that is frustrating. You're right. All the frustration you expressed, I feel the same.
Cool. And then for the marketing, do you guys do any technology companies?
Well, we did Microsoft a little bit.
As a technologist, right?
Yes.
I have to say, if you could, any help with this would be great in the future. Maybe if you could just give a talk on it or something. All the marketing to me, because I hit all the qualifiers of an engineer and a programmer and whatever. It is so boring. Like, I just want somebody to do like a little something better than a 60-page science white paper of like, they need to put more. I don't know. This trend has started, Arnie, and like we need to find a way to end it. If the opportunity ever comes up, just be like, yeah, like I would love to learn about an API from like a cool video, or maybe just like a cool, like something that's not a boring white paper.
Right. Well, I have a friend here in town who's managed to help grow quite a few businesses, and his passion right now is to get into the whole STEM thing with schools.
Oh yeah.
And so not at the higher end, but more in the high school, even I guess junior high level. And he's actually trying to raise some money right now. And if he does, then I'm going to probably start helping him. But his whole thing is to address your concerns by getting technology and video and everything into the curriculum, so it just becomes a natural part of what they're doing.
Yeah.
And the simplest example might be getting to actually use PowerPoint, but the other might be to be setting up their own the site and blog and just understanding what is happening in today's world from a digital perspective, and again trying to just work it right into the curriculum. So that's the approach he's taking to try to solve the problem.
Yeah, actually, so I called one of my friends after we were talking about the computer science problem this morning, and he told me that in our town we have USF college, and the couple of the companies were upset that there weren't digital marketing talent in our town. So what they did was they got together, they went to the college, and they actually spent like 8 months, made a course. The college got a professor to teach the course, and now they hire out of the kids that attend that course.
Right. Yeah. Well, the Bill Gates years I was talking about, I actually did exactly that with the University of Phoenix.
Wow.
We took Microsoft's curriculum. We were a business I had in the 90s was a technical training center. So we were teaching people, how to write code, how to do, software development, how to support networks. A lot of actually all the CTOs that are listening, all the people you're hiring that have Microsoft certifications and all that, whatever, Oracle and so on and so forth. That's what we taught. And one of a guy who I've actually stayed friends with ever since came to me from the University of Phoenix and asked if there was a way we could integrate our curriculum into theirs, so that people could get a degree but have this and have these certifications as well and give credit for them. And so we actually in the 90s built all that for the University of Phoenix.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So they would actually like do real work and then get credit for the real work, and now all of a sudden that piece of paper kind of means something.
Exactly. Right.
Oh,
yeah, imagine showing up with your computer science degree backed by 6 certificates of Microsoft, whatever, I don't even remember what they were called anymore, but Microsoft certified something, developer, Microsoft certified network support person, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
That made all the difference.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because if you know they passed the MCSE course, you know exactly what they know.
There you go, MCSE. That's what it was. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, I was taking I had the MCSE in front of me at age 11, and I was so upset. I was like, why do I need to know whatever the version like in the MCSE, if 95 was the most recent operating system, they would quiz you about the 3 OS before that. And I'm like, I don't need to know about printer drivers, 3 operating system before that. I don't even have that computer. They would backport at multiple versions. I was like, oh, this is 11 volumes of these 500-page book. It was crazy.
Yep.
And that was my childhood.
Right. There you go. And that's why you are where you are.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This has been a fantastic call, Arnie. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, you bet, Joel. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about the rough start.
Oh, there's no rough start. We just roll with it.
Good.
So I just stop right now.